interesting issues was to look at this issue of property rights and property right formalization and try to get some sense of the impact. We assembled a very interdisciplinary team. Myself as an economist, Kelly Askew is the head of African Studies Center at the University of Michigan, who's a Harvard-trained anthropologist. Reed Oakart, who is also an anthropologist who's worked in Tanzania for 40 years, who we brought out of retirement, sometimes kicking and screaming, but she was very interested in joining us as a postgrad. For many years, she was with the Center for Development Research, working on issues of rural livelihoods in the Songo Plains and elsewhere for many years. And then the fourth person we have working with us is, of course, Professor Faustin Maganga from the University of Dar es Salaam. Faustin, I don't remember Faustin when I was back teaching him, but he remembers me. He was a student at the time. So it was very, very much fun to get reacquainted with these individuals. Also, the person who did a lot of the statistical works was Kate Owens. Kate is a PhD student in urban planning at the University of Michigan, but she worked for 3 years with the World Bank on the issue of property right titling in urban areas. So she's very, very familiar. She's technically very good, and she's done a lot of the heavy lifting on the statistical work. And in fact, one of the reasons why this presentation is preliminary, because we only actually finally, about 6 months later, were able to clean up the data to get to the state of starting to run the statistics. Because as you know, with STATA, everything has to match. It is so painful when you have different spellings of sub-villages to actually get everything right and correct, to be able to kind of finally put the data together. But now it's up in Excel, and we've started using STATA to run some of the statistics. So I will cover this. We're doing what economists like with some statistics towards the end, but I want to give a sort of background to what we're doing here. So it's a 4-year grant from the National Science Foundation. One of the things is that we're running out of money, so we're hoping at some point to find some other sources to continue the research. And I'll talk a lot about the methodology here and the usefulness of it. The team basically has had some very valued research assistants. Lydia Nyema, Kate Owens, Emmanuel Sule is a PhD student now in Maryland. Conrad Ndombo is a PhD student here in SNRE. Menu Django, who's a PhD student in SNRE at the University of Michigan, came with us. Chami Chaga, who's now actually got into the PhD program at Harvard. Rose Nglima and Sia Jura. So we've had these extraordinary group of people, many going with us through the various stages, because we couldn't get all the titling done at once. We sometimes had to do it over a few months. What I'm going to cover today is a bit of the background to land titling, the issue of land titling and poverty, players and arguments, the process of land titling. Some of you will be familiar with it, some of you not. Our project, and then some of our preliminary statistical results. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but Tanzania has a very long history of different land regulations, basically, over time. This is not even an exhaustive representation, but you can see that it goes way back to 1895. Of course, the very important one from the issue of formalization were the 1999 Acts, basically, and then what came later, which was the 2005 spill, the attempt to strategically find and implement land laws. What we found, of course, is that surveying started before the 1999 land law, which basically recognized customary rights to land and equal footing with granted rights of occupancy, the statutory rights. Basically, it was a very haphazard process, stop and go, led very much by, when we were doing work in Manyara, led by LAMP, the Land Management Program, funded by CETA. Despite having their property rights legally recognized, villages are being strongly encouraged now by government officials, external donors, NGOs to formalize their rights via titling. The Ministry of Land, of course, as some of you are familiar, selected 5 experimental districts for the formalization of village land rights. Mbozi in the Bayer region, Iringa, Tanga region, Ndeni, Kilindi district in Tanga, and the Babati district. What we decided basically was to go to 3 of these regions in our study, and we've now, and the data today will reflect what we did in Manyara. We have now, only this week, I just flew back on a small little airplane to get back here for the talk from Mbeya. I'm waiting for the big airport to open up so I can take bigger aircraft back. So we were there, starting this last week or so, a new region in Mbeya, and there we plan to look at and study two districts, Mbarali and Mbozi. Mbozi having the most number of titles allocated, so it becomes very interesting for us. Basically, why these areas? Well, Mbozi district has a potential for high agricultural yields. It's a big coffee growing area, and was very much selected as a first pilot case in implementation of the new land laws beginning in 2004. Ringa also had great agricultural potential. The effort there was not really handled through the Ministry of Lands, nor through Mkurabita, but it was in fact very much sponsored. The initial spot titling was sponsored by the Irish NGO Concerns on a project called the Rights-Based Program for the Fulfillment of the Right to Adequate Food and the Right to Land for Poor and Vulnerable Citizens. The Babati district then, but Babati, beginning in 2008 or so, really taking off in 2009, has a World Bank finance program with the Ministry of Lands to use a very high-tech approach to titling using detailed and very expensive satellite maps to, in fact, not do spot titling, but to do systematic adjudication in all the villages, hoping to eventually complete the entire district. So this was our focal point. We finished Manyara, we get just the results. We are now moving to Mbeya. I fear we will have not enough money to get to Ringa. And so this is what we're hoping to be able to kind of continue to raise. So the issue of poverty and entitlement. Of course, Mkurabita started in 2004, powering the poor towards expanded market economy. It was developed with the National Strategy for Growth in Kakuta and in Kuzua in Zanzibar. Worked very closely initially with the Social Institute of Liberty and Democracy and placed it inside the President's office. You can see here some very distinguished individuals, Benjamin Kappa, along with Renato De Soto, and this character who used to be the Secretary of State by the name of Madeleine Albright. These are very high-profile people at the Commission on Legal Empowerment of the Poor, basically at a meeting in January 2007. And so here you can see very quickly the notions of formalization of property rights taken from Mkurabita, basically, where you have a very small number of legal entrepreneurship, the idea to formalize that, and the issue that property is